Hello there. My name is Matt, and this is the Poor Man's PhD. And actually, my name is that the word map is a pseudonym and an acronym. It is the initials of my full name, which happen to spell out the word map. And like a map, I think I have something in common. And my purpose here on the Poor Man's PhD is to educate and give direction. Everybody has a direction, have some place they want to go in life. Well, most people have some place they want to go in life. They have goals, they have dreams, they have aspirations. The only thing standing in the way of those dreams and aspirations are other people, most generally, or but generally they're roadblocks. And people think some people, since people have sometimes have difficulty in identifying those detours and roadblocks that get in their way. Sometimes those detours and roadblocks are things we have put in front of ourselves. Things that, we keep running into the same detour and roadblock all the time because we've developed habits or because we keep making the same mistake over and over again. It keeps us from getting where we want to go or keeps us from getting where we could go. It keeps us from realizing our potential. There are other roadblocks and detours that are set in our way by just life. Just live just as consequences of being living in this reality. Natural occurrences, acts of God, if you will, that occur. And then there are other roadblocks and detours that are set in our way. And these are the most common ones I think most people will find that seem to be set in our way by other people, by our communities, by our governments, by our parents, by people that, uh, we trust and some we shouldn't trust. Some of these people that are setting these roadblocks and obstacles in our way are doing it deliberately. Back in the old days, before civilization came along, we used to exist in what Hobbes called a state of nature. Before there was civilization, there was hunter gatherers, right? There wasn't many communities. There was just large tribes of families, large families basically that existed. And even with those families, they had sort of a communal structure. But there was nothing that prevented, and those hunter gatherers would hunt on were not only predators, but they were prey. And as populations grew, they stopped. They not only preyed upon the animals, the resources of the animals that were out there, the deer, the beaver, the elk, everything that they hunted on and preyed upon to feed themselves. They soon found out that it was easier to let somebody else, some other group, go out and hunt that food and go out and do all the hard work of bringing those animals and bringing in the food and gathering it all up, and then they go in and just take it from them. You ever seen the story of the grasshopper and the ant? Where the ant goes works all summer long, storing up food, and then the grasshopper comes in and takes it. And this in that story, that moral, that fable, the grasshopper dies when winter comes, right? But in reality, in the real world, we do have grasshoppers and we have ants, but the grasshoppers in our world, they just seem to keep getting a bit richer and richer, more and more, and they survive and do better while the ants suffer and do with a lot less. This is a mindset of two different. These are two different mindsets that are at work here. One is the mindset of an introvert that is exclusive. it's all about self. It's all about self-preservation. It's all about self survival of oneself. It's all and there's no rules. Nothing's barred. And those are the grasshoppers. Those are the ones who they don't. They just wait for all the little ants to get it together, and then they swoop in, take take it back, and said the modern day grasshoppers, men and men, they're smart enough to go back and store it and pack it and live off of it, and they just keep taking more and more and more, you know, and they've got until they've got so much they can't use it all. But even when they have plenty, they still keep taking. They still keep swooping down and taking it from the ants because they can, and because they feel they're the strongest. They're entitled to that. And then there's the other type of people, the ants, basically, if you want to call them that. And this is all metaphorical, so don't take any of this, to heart. Don't be insulted by it, being called an ant, because I'm an ant, if you want to look at it, metaphorically speaking. All poor people, all people who are weaker in society and who have always been the targets of the strong, women, disabled, children, the poor, the disadvantaged, whether culturally or socially disadvantaged. Anybody that was seen as were all subject to discrimination and exploitation and oppression. Slavery, being utilized and used and bought and sold and treated as chattel, which that has been predominantly because of its existence here and its prevalence to the United States of America and this country and this democracy, but it's not unique to African Americans. Slavery existed long before that, and it didn't matter. There was, why people of Caucasians, Europeans, Irish, people all over the world were enslaved by Romans, by Egyptians. It didn't, whoever they came across that was not of their culture, not of their ethnicity, were seen as chattel, were seen as a resource to be exploited and be oppressed. They were killed, enslaved, and worked to death. And it wasn't necessarily, ethnicity and race is just one of those things. It's a tool within a philosophy. It is a tool to stigmatize and to create weakness and dissension within, divide and conquer. But it's a justification of it's I'm superior because, and I'm stronger than you, so I've been able to overtake you. It must be because you look different. It must be because you're black, and you're inferior to me because you're black. So I'm white, you're black. I'm an Egyptian. You're European. So, and right now I'm stronger than you. I have the upper hand on you, so I have the power. So God must like me better than He does you. So that means there's something wrong with you. You're weaker than I am. God made you that way. So He intended for me. He brought you here to me so that I could use you. You are a resource to me. You're not my equal. So therefore, it is my right, my freedom, my independence to use you, to dominate you, to prey upon you, to exploit you. Woman, child, man, old, young, black, white, brown, yellow, whatever. It's all have been enslaved by their own kind and by other men and women throughout history. Throughout history. Has it always been? So it's not primarily about ethnicity. It is about the introverted, exclusionary, conservative type of philosophy, and the extroverted, inclusionary, liberal philosophy. These are ideologies. One is about the whole, the other is about the individual. And that brings me to today's topic, the paradox of the day. And I will be presenting these as I go on. And there's going to be a paradox pretty much for in every YouTube, because this is life, and the universe is full of paradoxes. The universe basically is this one huge paradox. Our planet is one huge paradox. This is the physical paradoxes as well as metaphysical paradoxes. This is one of those metaphysical paradoxes. And that paradox is that our independence, which we all want and which we all subscribe to, and which we all say we believe in, and which we all desire so much, that freedom, our independence, our individuality, our right to make our own choices, our right to live our lives the way we want to, our right to believe in the God we want to believe in, our right to eat what we want to eat, to dress the way we want to dress, to love the way we want to love, to recreate the way we want to recreate, to do the work that makes us happy, that fulfills us, our right to be healthy, our right to live, our right to a certain quality of life, whether it's a right or not, our desire to a certain quality of life. Because there is living and then there is living, meaning there is living, just living from day to day, which is what most poor people do. And working class people just living day to day, just existing from day to day. That's why most of them are angry. That's what most of them use profanity, which, by the way, I do from time to time, because I am one of those people. And if you are, if you are sensitive to profanity, or just have, or just, so righteous that, a profane word is going to stop you from hearing the context or the content or intent of the message, then please use your prerogative and don't watch this video. And don't allow your children to watch this video. Matter of fact, anybody, don't allow your children to watch these videos, because it's too complex for them, for one thing. And for another, from time to time, I will use those expletives and those expletives and those adjectives that some people may find offensive and some people may find inappropriate. To me, they're just a way of communicating. So I will add that disclaimer right here, right now, to watching these videos. And I apologize in advance if anybody gets offended, but I hope you will look beyond the verbiage used and absorb the message and the intent of the message, which is, there again, back to the topic. You're right. As it is mine to say these words, you're right, not to have to listen to them. It's my independence is interdependent on your independence. Not to listen to them. My independence is dependent on your independence. My rights to say these words are dependent on you having the right not to listen to them. And your right not to listen to these words is dependent on my having the right to speak them. But I hope the words that I say and the things that this paradox that I put out here today, that I'm here to present, and this topic that I'm talking about, which is independence, will ring a chord with many of you, and that you will will identify with it and see some wisdom in it, and find some direction or guidance from it. And that's my sincere hope and desire. Now back to the topic, which is independence. And that is, the paradox here is, our independence is dependent and interdependent on the independence of others. Our freedom is dependent on the freedom of others. We can only have as much freedom as we allow others to have. And in order to have a higher degree of freedoms, there's no 100% freedom. We can't have 100% freedom, because that is what the introverts want. They want 100% freedom. They want 100% freedom, 100% autonomy, the ability to do whatever they want to whoever they want, simply because by the divine right, as they see it, because they're stronger, because they can. Which was the way it was prior to the concept and the creation of civilization, and eventually this democracy that we live in, which is the first of its kind in the history of man. And it is what they call the Great Experiment, and it is a great experiment. And so far, it has not been going. It hasn't done very well, but it has done much better than anything else in history as far as pursuing those desires of every man, woman, and child who the thing they feel inside, which we all do, and that's our we all want to be treated, and we all want to have the rights of our individual sovereignty. There is our individual sovereignty. That's our right not to be attacked, to be exploited, to be oppressed, to be used and abused, killed, murdered, or preyed upon by anyone who thinks they have that right to do that because they believe they should have total 100% freedom to do whatever they want to by the right, the sole right of their strength, because they feel they're superior, or because they are superior physically or intellectually. And so by that, because they were born that way, God made them that way, God instantly instilled the right in them to dominate the weaker, to oppress and utilize and prey upon and exploit anything or anybody weaker than them. And that's their whole purpose. That is the survival of the fittest mentality, the law of the jungle, the state of nature, as Hobbes called it. That is what that is. That's the type of thinking. That's the type of mentality. And then the other type of mentality is the inclusive extroverts, who are about the whole, the community. This is a communal attitude, where there's an understanding that for the whole, all the individuals, the weak and strong alike in the community, to each enjoy a certain level of freedom and independence and quality of life, that each and every individual in the community is going to have to give up a certain percentage of freedom and independence and quality of life. It's just that's the way it works. And everybody then everybody, instead of having this paradigm, this hierarchy where you have the strong dominating everybody else, which is what we have now, the socially and economically strong, the politically powerful, which is which is parallel to the old days when you had the gangsters and the criminals and those gangs of people that run around preying on letting all these farmers and letting all these other hunters and these weaker, smaller groups collect their food and just going in and raiding them and taking what they had instead of going out hunting them, instead of praying and going out and doing the work themselves. They waited for them to do it, and they just went and took it because they were stronger. The aristocrats. You had this aristocracy that developed over the years. But today we have this. We have this small percentage, there's few at the top that are stronger, preying on everybody below them. But what we want, what everybody wants, and for everybody to sort of be equal, and for that balance, which is what we need, is what everybody desires, then everybody. See, these people have no respect. You get these people up here, they have no respect. They don't care about the independence. They don't want you to have independence and freedom. They don't want us to have independence and too much independence and freedom. Because if we do, then that means they don't have 100% independence and freedom. They have to give up some. That means they only, they have to give up some in order for us to have more. They don't want to do that because it's greed. It's they are selfish. They are self-centered. They are centrist in the fact, and centrist in the context that they are self-centered in their ideology. They don't understand that to them, their independence depends on the complete domination and exploitation of everyone else. But that's a system that can't last. Because after all of these predators up here have exploited all of these and hunted us all into extinction, then what happens? The only ones left to prey upon is each other. And then once they prey up, then there's going to be one there's going to be one of the strongest out of all of those that's going to emerge the victor, but that's going to be the only one left. They'll be the only one left. And that's going to be the extinction of humankind. And it should be, if that's the way we allow this to progress. If we allow our civilization to progress like this in the state of nature existence, and allow these apex predators to continue to hunt us out, then we deserve to be hunted out. The thing is, back in the old, when civilization started, people realized that though we might all be littler and weaker than you, but the thing is, there's a lot of us. You ever gotten into an anthill? We're giants compared to an anthill. But oh my God, if you ever get into an anthill or especially fire ants, they just swarm everywhere, and holy crap, we are the ants. We can swarm these people. But why haven't we been able to accomplish this? There again, because even amongst the weak, we have not realized this one important thing, that our welfare, our prosperity, our freedom to have those things, our independence to have those things, our ability to have those things is interdependent on all of us. The ants have a better sense of community than we do instinctively. We instinctively want to be introverted. We want to be like those apex predators. While we hate them, we admire them because we want to be them. We want to have that 100% freedom to do whatever we want. But we can't, because it will never pan out. Never, because we are ignoring the one fundamental property that exists. In every ecosystem, everything is interrelated. We live in a social economic ecosystem, a socio-economic ecosystem where we are all interdependent on each other. The whole, which is how the Constitution tried to frame this and makes it lay down guidelines. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, we the people promote the general welfare. Now, I'm not quoting this verbiage for verbiage, but promote the general welfare. The general welfare. That's the whole. And what freedom? So we've laid down, civilization has developed, and we've laid down certain laws. We all want to be safe. We don't want to be preyed upon. We don't want people to have total freedom to just come and kick our doors in. And the law says you can't do that now. We've developed civilized law. Says you can't just walk up and kick my door in the middle of the night, come in here and kill me, kill my family, take everything we got. Just because you want to, just because you think you've got the right to, because you're stronger than me, or because you catch us off guard, because you find us in a moment of weakness, at our weakest moment when we're asleep at night. People still try to do that, but it's primitive. It's not permissible. It's against the law, and it should be against the law, because that's part of this understanding. That, you know, that's part of that security. We want our independence, but we want security. In order to have some security, you have to be willing to obey certain laws that provide that security. And for everyone to have the same level of security, everybody has to abide by the same rule that says, okay, you cannot prey upon your neighbor. You cannot rob your neighbor. You can't kill your neighbor just because you don't like the way they look. You can't kill them because we've got it now. We can't even kill them if they attack you in many places. Which is kind of going from one extreme to the other, in my opinion, because life is about balance. And weak people have a right to defend themselves. We say that's what we got the police for. Police don't there 24 hours a day. Police come after the fact, after it's too late. And I am sorry for all you passive liberals out there, and I'm a liberal myself for the most part, but that's just another form of extremist. That's just another extreme. Going too far to the left is as bad as going too far to the right. The perfect place for me is just left of center. Okay, political terms, just left of center, and all you political scientists and politicians and people who are aware about that stuff will understand. On a bell curve, you have extreme right over here, which is what we got in the White House now, and these are these introverted apex predators over here. And then you've got the extreme left over here, who are just as extreme in the opposite direction, but the consequences are the same because it still winds up limiting, they're forcing their, by imposing their wills and their values on the rest of society, they are upsetting that scale of independence. They think they're fighting for independence, but they're only fighting for independence on this group or that group. Instead of fighting for the independence of all, there has to be a balance. And you have, in order to have freedom to do this, you have to allow other people to have freedom. And when you go to the extreme left, you are you go to a point where your agenda gets narrowly focused and defined, and it becomes dictatorial, and you actually come to a point when you come full circle where you come around and the two meet at the bottom, and they become identical. The extreme left and the extreme right become identical in their consequence, which is extremist, prejudicial, and predatory in the sense that maybe not violent on this side, but it's still a way to dominate. You're dominating psychologically and socially. By social, instead of using violent domination, you're using psychological and social domination. But it's domination nevertheless. And it is prejudicial nevertheless. And it is oppressive to the independence of all those others in society who don't particularly want to make these choices. You have a right to live your way. You have a right to and not to be judged for that. But you are being judgmental of those who don't who don't live life the way you think they should, who don't make the same choices as you do. But granted, there are some choices that we should all that must be there's some rules that must be about that help, that protect the whole. The environment. We all live in this ecosystem. We destroy it. Our independence and survival depends on our ecosystem and the planet we live on. We destroy that, we destroy ourselves. Just like the predators. They hunt us all out, they kill themselves. They hunt us with extreme prejudice and with their extremism, and they demonize and they hunt us and kill us off because they don't believe in us, because we're just a resource to them, or for whatever reason. Then they die. Because whether they know it or not, they are dependent on us. So it's all a matter, again, our independence and security and prosperity is interdependent on the security and independence and prosperity of the whole. And that, my friends, is that. That is the message for today. That is what we need to get through our heads. And remember, you want the right to live on that extreme left side or this extreme right side, that's fine. If you believe in God and you want strict autocratic lifestyle, and that's what you believe in, and that's the way you want to live your life in your home, and that's the way you want to raise your children, you know, That's fine, but they may grow up. They'll probably grow up and reject that simply because it's oppressive, and they feel it's not fair. And they could. Some of them may grow up and accept that. You may brainwash and condition them fine. They may grow up to believe that, and you perpetuate your philosophy and ideology through your kids. That's fine. That is your right. That you're free to do that. Just as the left is free to teach their children the way they want to. But ultimately, we all lead by example. And we see that it's not, and we see that it's oppressing us, and it's making our lives worse, and it's interfering with our own right to freedom and independence. Most people will reject it. That whatever it is, we try to dictate to our children. Most people want to force their children to be like them, to force them to do this, to force them. You can't do that. They won't. Most of the time, they'll just reject it out of hand. Because children have this innate sense of justice. They have this innate sense of individuality. They have this innate sense. They look to us for guidance, but they also look to us for fair treatment. How many times have you said when you were a child or heard a child say, "That's not fair"? And 80% of the time they were right. It wasn't fair. It's not fair what was being done to them. And the only reason it was being done to them was because they were smaller and weaker and defenseless and less capable of verbally or physically defending themselves. And many times it was for their own good. The other half of the time it was for their own good, and they just didn't understand it. And they thought, and they thought it wasn't fair, but and it wasn't fair. It probably wasn't fair, but we had to do it because it was the only way to protect them, and because that's the way our society is set up, and we had no other resources, ability to do it any other way. There may have been a more fair way to handle this situation if we'd had the proper resources, but because our society is about the apex predators now, and we're down here on the bottom part of this social hierarchy as being in the poor, working poor classes, we don't have the resources. We don't have the capabilities. We don't have the things, the tools we need to handle these situations in a more fair manner. Because most of this unfairness about kids is about, it's not fair. I go to school and I can't eat. That's not fair. My friends laugh at me because I can't get a lunch because I can't afford, because we can't afford to eat at school, and you can't pay for my lunches. That's not fair. That's not fair. They shouldn't laugh at me because that's not right. That's unfair. That's not right. I go to school and these kids bully me because I'm smaller than they are, or because I can't, because I have this dyslexia, or because I'm ADHD, or because I'm a different color, because my hair's different, because my skin color is different, because I have this limp, because of this or that or the next thing. That's not fair. And they're right, that's not fair. And if we were, as poor people, as working class people, we had the resources that some of these people bear, we could help to level that playing field for our child. We could help to provide them with the opportunities that they want and they see other kids getting and they want and they need. But we can't. And it isn't fair. And the only way it's going to be fair is to start being concerned more about the whole, to adopt the idea, that philosophy of being an extrovert and an inclusionary instead of continuing to perpetuate this primitive ideology of being an introvert and being exclusionary and selfish in our agenda. Independence is interdependent on the independence of others. And when people start practicing and understand that and start putting that into practice and realizing that and afford people the same independence and the same freedom as they want and wish for themselves and their families, then they shall get that freedom and independence that they shall desire, simply by the fact that by giving it, you get it. It'll come back. You can only get as much as freedom and independence as you're willing to give. These people up here aren't willing to give any. They want to dominate and control and lock down. They want the total freedom and independence. There's no 100%. Nothing's 100%. Thank you very much. If you like this video, I hope you see you next time. This is Matt, and speaking to you from PoormansPh.D. I hope you'll tune in next time. Thank you very much, and I wish you health,
wealth, and happiness.